Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, may I have your attention, please? Are you ready to engage in a mind-blowing experience and hear talks about life, technology, entertainment, and business? The next episode of HIPTHER Talks starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hi everyone, Zoltan here. We're back again with HIPTHER Talks. Today we are going to come back from the blockchain side and enter a much more interesting world, which is the metaverse. And today I have with me Lili Eva Bartha, CEO of GN3RA. Maybe she will pronounce this more correctly because it's a new company and it has a very interesting name. So hi Lili, it's nice to meet you. I know that you are a new media designer and a Web3 entrepreneur, but I will leave you to tell a bit more about yourself and your background and say a few words about your company. So hi, it's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thank you, Zoltan, for the introduction and for the invitation. I'm beyond excited to be here and represent GN3RA. I know it's a hard thing to pronounce, so everyone listening, GN3RA, please remember the name. We hope that we will be appearing quite a lot around the world, so hopefully people will just start remembering it. Yes, so a little bit about me. I'm Lili. I'm the founder and the CEO of the company, and I think what I usually do is I introduce my background because people don't really understand how I arrived to this point in my life based on all the little stations that I stopped at. So I started off as a mathematician in Hungary, but then I decided I would like to be a fashion designer and express more a little bit my creativity through those means. So I studied fashion design in Denmark, and then I did a master at the Royal College in London. So after 11 years of studying, I realized that this is all great, and I actually did manage to become a fashion designer. I did work for really big companies, and I did, design for the biggest fashion weeks, which is a big accomplishment in many fashion designers' life. But I realized that actually the industry is quite horrible. In fact, it's the second most pollutive industry in the world, and the social environmental footprint is just enormous in a sadly negative way. So I almost stepped away from the industry. But thankfully, due to good guidance and advisors around me, I realized that actually how I can truly contribute to the change is by finding my ways to reduce my physical production and create alternative solutions. So I became a digital expert. I created a studio around 2020. And with that studio, I have been creating immersive Web3 and fashion projects to different stakeholders like individual designers, academia, gaming companies, and fashion brands throughout the last couple of years, which has been a really interesting experience because I could be seeing firsthand how these businesses are entering the so-called today metaverse landscape and what are the actual tools and kind of experiences that they are looking for in order to connect better with the newer audiences. So this is how I arrived to the role that I am doing today, but obviously how it became a company, that's another story.
All right, so was it this at the beginning of 2020 or later?
Good question. It was actually in the beginning of 2020, end of 2019. So it was before the pandemic. And it was quite interesting to kind of just follow my intuition and really just do like a fun, huge VR project around fashion. And then the pandemic arrived. And sadly, just before I was about to graduate, we had to move to our living rooms. And I know that it has been a horrible period for many worldwide. But when you're a fashion student and you live your whole life in a fashion studio, next to your sewing machine, and suddenly everything goes away and you're in your living room with your laptop, that was quite a big push to truly understand, okay, well then now what can I do? I'm not saying it wouldn't have happened without the pandemic, but it was definitely an eye-opening experience on how I can still continue developing my creative practice, kind of express my values, my ethos, and whatever I want to tell the world from my living room. So that's when I opened a couple of digital software more related to fashion, then virtual reality. I kind of cried a bit because it was really hard to understand them. But after months of hard work, I kind of understood how to use them. And it became really, really useful at the right time because most of the companies were quite desperate for digital help. And it was really, well, sadly, but a good timing then.
Yeah, for some, yeah, it was really good. And yeah, because when we talk about the metaverse, and usually at our conferences and during our podcast, without any doubt, the almost 80% of the talks are around fashion tech. So believe it or not, even the news that we publish are around fashion tech, because that has been the main driver of the metaverse during 2020-21, because of many brands have jumped on board the virtual reality, augmented reality platform, because people are nowadays maybe not leaving the house. Maybe they can try on a dress in metaverse, and that works even for some even better. So yeah, we had a lot of talks about fashion tech and fashion tech in the metaverse with Farfetch, with Vinted, with Burberry, sorry. So you said you founded your digital innovation studio in 2020, which over the years, now in almost 3 years, have shifted towards product development, growing GN3RA as we know it today. How did you come up with the idea of creating this platform?
Absolutely. So just to go back just a little bit to what you mentioned before, it's interesting that the fashion kind of landscape, you say it, according to you, is driving or has been driving from the beginning, this kind of acceleration in digital adoption. I think it's partially true and partially not. Forgive me, but I do need to comment on it because for me it's such a passionate topic. I really like to go to the depth of these, because uncovering the underlying social and economical kind of landscape and context is really key. And that's why I even refrain from using the word metaverse, because I don't really care what the metaverse is as a label. I care about what's behind it, how people socialize, consume, and play online, and what changes in their behavior when they do it on these platforms. Because these platforms have always been around. And actually, being a digital avatar or representing yourself as a digital avatar has been also around. So I think that the interesting kind of notion here is more about why that accelerated that much, and why was it the mass adoption, especially from the fashion landscape. And we have to remember that the fashion industry is really heavy on its physical, logistical supply chain. So actually, not just the fashion, but quite a few other industries were heavily disrupted because they just couldn't actually perform their supply chain activities. And of course, from a design and lifestyle perspective, most of these industries couldn't even present their work, be it a fashion week or a showcase for products. So I think it's important to remember that this is really what kind of is an underlying structure for when the digital adoption accelerated a couple of months' time, 5 years ahead, which is quite fascinating in my eyes. But interestingly, today, I think fashion is kind of a leading or a very visually significant industry. And I think that's why many people associate this kind of acceleration and industry wide landscape trend, because fashion is so, around our sensorial perceptions. And I think it's important to highlight it, because I've even been at a panel discussion recently where they said that fashion is leading the metaverse trend, and it's kind of everything comes from that. And I was like, not really. I think
it's
fashion
not leading it, but it's around 60% because the news around it, at least.
Oh, absolutely. But also because people love to report about what the latest luxury fashion and lifestyle companies are doing. So I do find it a little bit biased, just because we are all biased, because what we wear, how we look, is actually sometimes even more significant for people in their daily lives. If you look at the statistics of younger generations of Gen Z, more than 60% of them finds their digital self-expression visually appealing. More important than the physical. It's not even about their data privacy or anything about, safety in the digital space. It's about their looks, which is not a bad thing, but I find it fascinating how we end up being so visual. Anyways, back to your question. So how I arrived to this point, right? So working firsthand with businesses and academia, as well as students, because I also am really passionate about lecturing and engaging with students. So for me to have the opportunity to lecture at 7 universities worldwide in the last couple of years, new media, digital fashion, immersive experience design, computer animation, and you name it, it was really interesting to see the students' responses as well to the platforms and the tools I've introduced to them, as well as the businesses. And together, all that informed me on something really important, important, that playfulness and experiential processes are missing from the virtual content creation landscape. By virtual content creation, I mean when you want to literally create virtual content or experience and kind of use that as a channel to reach new audiences or just be more relevant to your current audiences, as well as if we look at the user-generated content creation landscape, how individuals would like to also enter that space, but there is a lack of tools. So in 2020, I did a virtual residency in Amsterdam. I was the first ever digital fashion resident at Amsterdam University of Applied Sciences. And I did a virtual reality fashion project where you could design outfits in VR using 5-6 different methodologies, like literally building them or growing them using biodigital algorithms. It was obviously quite experimental and quite artistic, but actually user testing that experience, hearing the feedback from students saying, can you please make this into an actual product because I do want to do this. And finally, you created a way where I actually enjoy it. So it's a long in the making, but actually today we arrived to the point where I did build a company. I did created a product focused kind of strategic studio. I did hire my team. I did do a successful fundraise. And then now we managed to launch our minimum viable product last week. So it has been a really interesting journey. And I'm beyond grateful that I could actually build something that now hundreds of users can try out the first time in the world.
Yeah, it's exciting. Even if virtual reality and everything virtual, like avatars and everything that you mentioned, are around for a while, virtual reality did have a push in the recent years. Even if it was pushed by Facebook with their Meta, which personally it's only used. In my opinion, it's only popular because the gear is cheap. So Oculus is pretty cheap. It's a standalone VR headset, but there are many other options out there. Lots of great platforms which are even far more greater than that. So, do you agree on this? Maybe.
Okay. Well, when I'm asked a question around hardware and technological innovations, believe me, I do have my own opinion in this, and that is that while I think having more accessible consumer-ready devices, be it virtual or augmented reality, are great, I think, again, the question is really what will these benefit for us? Because many people associate, especially those who are not that familiar with technology, and there's no judgment from my end, it's just interesting to observe this. Many people associate the metaverse phenomena with virtual reality. They even call digital experiences virtual reality because for them it's virtual and reality. Totally makes sense. But obviously for us who actually work in these devices and software hardware, it's interesting that they make this connection. So while it's good to have consumer-ready headsets that you can, 300 pounds is cheaper than an iPhone. So if anything, then we can finally say that if you really want to buy a new phone, you can also buy a new VR headset. But I think the question is, what is it that you will use this headset for, and who are the ones using it? So when it comes to companies, I think often businesses, for them, it makes sense either to design in a virtual reality environment, like using Gravity Sketch, and have like a collaborative tool that your internal design team can benefit from, especially from considering remote work and being in one room with your design colleagues is quite impressive. If it's from a user's perspective, there are many initiatives like fitness in VR or gaming in VR. I think creation in VR is one of the most interesting. So if you are using, let's say, Tilt Brush, which is the virtual reality drawing tool, then you can create your own 3D content in a matter of minutes with just the movement of your hands. So I think the potential in virtual reality is the level of immersion it provides and the embodiment. And because I'm a researcher in embodiment and virtual presence, for me, these are the sweet spots. So how you're embodying your digital kind of presence or even a digital avatar in virtual reality informed by your physical presence is one of the most exciting things. And I think in the coming years, it's going to be more and more adopted and accepted. But I do not fully agree with the approaches that different companies at different scale provide, because first of all, the new landscape or this future landscape should be democratic and really decentralized, and the control should be in our hands. But that's not really what's happening, is it, when you're looking at bigger corporations trying to monopolize on this. So I personally think that I will not go to the extent of talking about what my views are on Meta, But the fact that the devices are becoming more democratic still doesn't mean that the landscape is. And I think that we as platform builders, for example, need to facilitate that regardless of the price of a headset. I do think virtual reality has a huge potential, but I also think it's still way too early for it. And by the time that technology becomes really widely accepted, like mobile phones, there will be not really a difference between virtual and augmented reality anyways. So when people ask me that and I say this, that's when they lose it. They're like, what are you talking about? In VR, you're completely immersed. In AR, it's your phone filter. I'm like, yes, but don't talk to Meta or other companies. Talk to the actual holographic display providers. So those are the companies who truly know where these technologies will evolve. And if you really understand how the technology is built into the displays of any headset, AR or VR, then you will understand that in 5 years there will be no difference. The point will be is how much immersion you would like to choose as a consumer.
Exactly. And during this year, for whoever I have talked to, nobody had a good opinion about Meta. So all right.
Yeah, let's not go there, because actually I think that there are some great initiatives that they are doing. If you think about it, we are talking about them. Isn't that a big thing? They are providing a headset that everyone is talking about. If I walk around in London, I see advertisements in the bus stops talking about how the future may be digital, but I don't know what their current messaging is, but something else isn't. I think the fact that they actually managed to have such a global reach is actually a great thing for this technology. I don't agree with many other things, but let's not forget that at the end of the day, a global adoption will happen where people are more aware of it and they find it more friendly and they can create a personal connection with that technology. And for that, unfortunately, sometimes big players need to do this. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but I think it's actually not that useless after all.
Yeah, I think more people would be using headsets if it were the option to go from one metaverse platform to the other without having to create a new account and everything, which is also going to be something of a challenge in the next years. Like even HTC has Viveverse, and they have also around 299 euro headset, which is just connected to your phone. So back to your platform.
Yeah, back to my business. Sorry, I get so passionate about these topics because this is the landscape I'm working in. This is where my company is. So understanding what drives people and businesses is key for us.
Exactly. So did you have any challenges that you encounter? And maybe say about a few words about what challenges does your platform address?
So we got that far to discuss that actually there was a gap on the market. There is still quite a few gaps around this topic on platforms that help users to actually create content easily. Users, individuals, business stakeholders, both. So what I ended up doing is I combined 5 different verticals. For example, fashion creation software that is great but highly technical. Creative portfolios like Dribble or ArtStation to enable players who are becoming creative or enter the creative creation landscape to have certain kind of visuals that they can display their work through or systems. I included some social gaming platforms, aka metaverses, just to have, well, not just, but to have the social aspect to the creativity, which I think is key. They go hand in hand. What was it? Oh, gaming, of course. We implemented quite a few gamified features because I do believe that creativity can be stressful. Creative decision making can be stressful if you're not used to it. If you ask me to design a mug tomorrow, I will design a mug now, 10 actually. But if you ask, I think a general audience member who is not necessarily used to making creative decisions on a daily basis, for them suddenly, even if they have the tools, it's going to be a bit overwhelming. And we have seen that firsthand from our user testings. So actually the notion of gamification in this platform can address a huge challenge, which is even if you have the platform and the tools, people need to kind of relax and forget the stress that they can encounter when they even have to choose a shoelace. So there are lots of interesting reports and market statistics around physical customization of products and how actually users or players or consumers end up actually being overwhelmed by the decisions because they are not used to that freedom and they don't want to take the responsibility. So I think one of the challenges was and is still, how will that playfulness truly kind of immerse our players into certain stories where they just go along with the narrative, and then at the end of the day they do create, but they don't actually realize it. So these are verticals that we, as much as CS challenges, we also used principles from them to kind of integrate them into the platform. And so far I've got really good feedback on, for example, usability. So one of the biggest challenges of digital software where you can create content is that it's really difficult in terms of interactions and user interface, because what they want to do is they want to present you all the tools possible in the software, rightfully so. They have this like traditional, conventional like grouping of different tools in different parts of the UI. But for someone who has been training in a physical fashion design landscape with a scissor, for them suddenly looking at a 2D screen with 50 UI icons will be overwhelming. So we took a really big care on how to reiterate these user interfaces that usually show editor tools, how to reinvent the design interactions that they are easier, more familiar, and quickly performable. I don't know if performable is a word, but I just invented that. So the kind of user interface and the front end of the software got a lot of attention, and we are still at a very early stage. So we have been testing it quite a lot with different audiences, and even at our launch evening, and now with our early access. But I think it's one of the key points of the software that needs to be continuously developed, because no one can truly nail a great seamless user experience for the first time. But that's, I think, one of our biggest challenges going forward. Like, how can we continue to unpack this simplification, but also remember we are in the fashion industry, which means that it needs to be aesthetically appealing. So how can you combine simplicity, ease of use with something of high-end refined aesthetic? Well, that's a great challenge, and I think it's really exciting to unpack that as we go along on our roadmap.
Yeah, and your roadmap looks really good, because your company just announced a partnership with the Royal College of Art, the world's most influential postgraduate institution of art and design. And could you tell us more about what this partnership is about, and maybe what opportunity it opens for GN3RA?
Absolutely. So actually, it was our first ever launch, collaboration, and drop-in one. And I chose the Royal College of Art because I used to study there, and I personally think that the people who teach there, studied there, were studying there, or even work with me now are quite formidable. And I have this incredibly luxurious network where people want to support us and help us. So I reached out and we invited 7 designers who finished at the same course like I did. Today they have incredible creative practices. Some of them, are addressing things around transhumanism, transgenderism, posthumanism, lots of trans and post things. So it's all about how to kind of move between and across disciplines, which I find really resonating with my own practice. I used to be a post-disciplinary designer, meaning I leave behind kind of labels that people put on their creative practices. So these designers are incredible, and they gave us each one look, one outfit, one asset, whatever you want to call it, so that we can implement it into our software and to present the first ever content to our players that can be customized, because GN3RA is all about very high level customization, which almost looks like infinite amount of design possibilities on the outfit templates. And I think it was a beautiful way of opening their creative practices up. I had meetings with each designers, and it was interesting to see their change of thinking, how they were kind of following how our platform is growing. Some of them wanted to restrict how users could interact with the outfits, but then in the very same sentence, they actually said, oh, hold on, actually, that's not the principle of this game. So let's just let them do what they want. And that kind of revelation for them in going along on how GN3RA is working, I think it was a remarkable thing to witness, me on the side, a fly on the wall. And Zoe, who's the head of the fashion course, has been incredibly helpful for us. She's always been a big supporter of all new initiatives that can create a more positive social and environmental landscape for fashion and the future of fashion. So I'm incredibly lucky that she helped me to curate these designers, and we together kind of implemented that into the platform. And what are the special kind of values that it brings? Well, first of all, I'm just beyond lucky to work with so innovative, incredible designers, but also I think it's a beautiful combination of academia and industry combining their kind of best fortes or skills, because academia will always have some sort of truly intriguing innovation and experimental approach that industry cannot really afford always, because industry is about commercial use, it's about consumables, whereas academia can stay a little bit more abstract. But when these two forces unite, I think that's what this new landscape really needs. It needs innovation, it needs new ideas, new thoughts, new approaches, and my favorite word, disruptions to the creative practice as a fashion designer operates today, but also to fashion businesses and also to the creative industry at large. So how people are distributing content, how people can or cannot create content, how can they monetize on it. So I'm a big believer of user-generated content creation and user-led economies. Of course, just like the metaverse and interoperability, these are great ideas and very noble ideas. But it all comes down to the actual feasibility. Can we actually enable users to create content? Can they actually freely trade and monetize on it? How does a user-led economy work when there are still capitalism and the companies need to make profit? So I think that this is always going to be a challenging kind of initiative. But if we try, at least we can achieve some kind of advancements towards a kind of more equal, more democratic landscape. And that's what really I am about with the company. We want to take the first step and combine creativity with community, for example.
All right. And how does academia accept Web3?
Okay. Well, Web3 entered the conversation. All right. So we didn't talk about Web3 before. Just to be clear, currently we are actually almost like a Web 2.5 platform. And I think that's a really interesting notion, especially in the fashion metaverse kind of intersection landscape, because there are lots of kind of initiatives to include Web3 technologies and solutions into business models. But I think it has its own place on the timeline and a strategical kind of meaning to it, rather than let's do Web3 now. So if anything, then Gen3RA is in the middle. We already have implemented some Web3 elements that can help, especially our physical participants of our launch evening, to unlock utilities that the tokens as POAPs they received can provide them in our next launch. But we are also ahead of huge Web3 integration with our marketplace and trading, because people create IP and they create own outfits in our platform. We really want to make sure that we offer the maximum protection from an intellectual perspective, as well as we kind of add value. So we will introduce NFT minting next year. And on that note, I can talk about the Web3 aspect, but just wanted to make clear that currently the platform is somewhere in between Web2 and Web3. And from an academical perspective, it's really difficult because academia is experimental. And I think the Web3 landscape is kind of a perfect representation of that somewhere out in the space. Like, it's all about experimentation, all about seeing how the community responds and what is the immediate feedback that these projects can take into consideration. So I think the Web3 landscape is really project-based rather than business-based. And academia, I think, benefits from that, because a short, quick, fast iteration is a great way of testing the waters. I cannot really talk more about this because my main connection to academia is through immersive technologies and digital fashion. If anything, then students have been incredibly questioning and demanding in terms of information on the Web3 solutions, which means that they do want to understand it better. They do want to know why it's so important, and they want to kind of engage with it. But I think that I'm more of an immersive expert, and I have a wonderful agency who's supporting us on the Web3 strategy. So I'm beyond lucky to have the real experts next to me on this field. And I think from my opinion, I can talk more about immersive and digital fashion.
All right. So at the beginning of December, your team hosted the Gen3RA Fashion Metaverse launch event in London, right? So if our informations are correct, those who attended had the chance to create their very first digital outfit. Is this correct?
Yes, it is correct. People before them could also do some outreach, because we have done quite a few user testing with incredible academic partners as well as general audiences at Microsoft Reactor. But our launch evening was definitely a great opportunity for anyone who was interested to come along and sit down at our little user testing station and play a bit. It was incredible. My team was there. We had a global team, so it was quite rare to see so many of my colleagues in one room, let alone at one table. It was quite beautiful. And we just love seeing how anyone can sit down and play a little bit. And perhaps before they engage with our software, they've never engaged with digital fashion before. Perhaps they have already actually created their 3D models, but I think that for many of them, this is the first ever opportunity in their life to literally design or create something or be creative with in relation to an outfit. And we even saw some people who just sat there for an hour and they just kept on redesigning some of our templates. It was quite beautiful to see the reactions. What I really like is that we are a startup. We just launched an alpha, which is a baby, a very ugly little baby. Babies are beautiful, but I think they're also a bit creepy in the beginning. So that's how our product is, it's delivering what we promised, but also it has its own challenges. And our audience, the attendees, the players, they were so welcoming. They were so excited and positive. They said they cannot wait to see where this product will grow into, or where it's going to evolve into. And I think that support, that community mindset, that we want to be there from the very first beginning steps, and we want to follow your journey and kind of work together with you, support you along the way, means more to me than anything else. The acceptance and support from these people is what will build our community. It's going to be at the core of it. It's going to be a safe space where everyone can thrive in creativity and share this beautiful experience of creation with each other. So that event was a great representation of this mindset.
All right, so the feedback was good.
Yes, in a nutshell, yes. If it wouldn't be, I would be really sad now, but I'm more inspired and motivated than ever. We actually have granted them the early access as well ever since, so we can actively monitor their engagement with the platform. We have a really good Discord community, so anyone who's listening, please join in. You can see the creations that players share, but you can also do some creative brainstorm or even ask questions about the platform. So people are joining quite in big volumes the Discord server, and I think it's really cool to see how they are eager to share their creations. They are looking for feedback. So I think it's an overarchingly very positive reception so far.
All right, so most of our listeners will definitely learn the name GN3RA by now.
Oh, they definitely, yes.
Oh yeah, but I want to ask you, how did you come up with this name and what does it mean?
Right. Well, actually, it was really difficult 1.5 years ago to try to name the platform. I must admit that it's a little bit of behind the scenes thinking, but how would you name a platform that kind of, the name should be descriptive, it should be a bit mystical, a bit mysterious, a bit cryptic, it should be fresh and young and dynamic. So there was a lot of expectations to this name, and believe me, we have done our best, but we just couldn't really find the right word for it, because if those people who know me, they know that I'm a bit of a weirdo, and I like all things experimental, and this whole platform is an experiment. So I had a biodigital algorithmic tool that's using parametric design in real time, where you can grow things, and that was called GN3RA. And one of my colleagues said, well, I don't think you're only generating here digital fashion grown by algorithms. I think this program actually is generating a whole new level of digital fashion as it is. So why don't we just call it GN3RA? And I was like, oh, actually, why not? Because GN3RA comes from generate, it comes from generation. So it's a kind of a wordplay between creating something by creators. So I think I hope that GN3RA will signify how people and creativity go hand in hand. We call our players generators. Okay. And I think if they see it written down, it's still very challenging to say, but I think it's going to help them to realize, oh, so actually the company name is GN3RA. But I think it's just our approach to represent our values and what we stand for, and that's democratizing virtual outfit creation.
Oh, that's nice. So we talked about the Royal College of Art partnership. We talked about the GN3RA Fashion Metaverse launch. Are there any news that we haven't touched base on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the whole year is ahead of us. 2023 is going to be mind-blowingly exciting. We are just in the last stages of strategizing for Q1 and Q2, so the first couple of months in the year. And one of the most exciting things about our product that is modular. We have product features lined up that we have already partially developed. We have incredible opportunities along the timeline, like the Metaverse Fashion Week next year. And we have incredible partnership opportunities. So I see product features, timeline, milestones, and partnerships like a puzzle. And we have this beautiful freedom of like shifting it around to make sure that our community truly benefits from our next steps. If anything, we set up our Discord channel so that users can give us direct feedback on what is it that they would like to see in the platform. So it's a very organic way of developing the platform with actually these people. So I cannot tell too much, but people should really look out for a really interesting collaboration coming up, which will enable people to wear the creations that they create in general. I'm not going to explain where in what sense, because I think in this landscape wear can be a million different things. But it was an interesting feedback we got from players already. They want to wear them. And even though our platform will have its own capacities to create showcase spaces and invite fellow users and kind of wear the outfits and own avatars and share the experience, they do want to, I think, see a bridge or an interoperable approach to at least some platforms. So we actually accelerated the development of that. That's going to be one of our biggest milestones, I think, early next year. The other one is the multi-user functionality. So people love creating, but I think people even love more brainstorming together. And we are one of the first ever fashion platforms where you can do that as a multi-user kind of gamified creation experience. So people will be able to create design experiences together, share their ideas, feedback from the very beginning. And I think that's one of the fundamentals of community-led creation, that you can do actually the process itself together with your friends. So these are key two areas that I'm really looking forward to explore next year. And also we're planning another event, of course, because, well, now that we can meet in real life, it's truly an amazing opportunity. We are actually in discussions with a huge space in London where we are looking to do some real life immersive installations. And I'm speaking huge ones because they have outrageously huge screens. So I am particularly interested about that, because even at our lunch evening some weeks ago, we met so many people who were interested and wanted to come along. And I think these are the kind of events that we can truly share our values and our mission. We want to create a knowledge exchange, a skill share platform, rather than, hey, this is general, please come and, see it. It's more like, hey, have you thought about what virtual self-expression means to you? Do you want to try some experimental tools to really question in yourself as a general audience member tomorrow? What does it mean to be online, and who am I online? Well, then come along and you can talk to us, to our team. We are very friendly. We have industry experts, we have academics. So please come and enjoy. And I want to create this like playground platform as we go along in a number of different physical events. But this will be announced soon. So if anyone is following us, stay tuned, because you will see much more details on it. If you're based in London, hopefully soon we can also do some activations worldwide rather than just London. But for now, we are very small. So London will be our center for this.
All right. So any chance you also can create NFTs on your platform?
Yes. So as I mentioned, that is actually going to be a significant implementation for us. But I want to make sure that it's clear it's not because it's trendy or it's it's expected. It's because it's needed and it's useful. So again, our users will customize outfits and they will create versions of them that doesn't exist anywhere else, which means that they create their own IP, and we want to protect them. So by storing it on the blockchain and authenticating it with tokenization, we will help them to have more control over this actual intellectual property they create. And also these usually add more value to the actual creative process itself. So once they will mint the outfits, they will be able to trade them well, the trading will happen even before that. But obviously, I think tokenized goods are a quite good representation of what is tradable, because then you make it unique and it's increasing its value when it comes to trading. We have some really interesting trading opportunities that we have in plan, for example, renting and swapping and auctioning. So we want to kind of bring back the physical activities that often people perform with their own, for example, collectibles. If you think of virtual outfits compared to physical heritage outfits, many people see physical heritage outfits as an investment, and then they use that investment to kind of like, yeah, I'm never alone. The cat is always around.
So those who are watching the video, you just saw a cat, and those who are listening on Spotify, you better head to our YouTube channel, HIPTHER TV, to see her cat.
Oh, it's okay. So if there is a video recording, then indeed the neighbor's cat is really keen on disrupting my calls usually, just like we want to disrupt the industry. So we have lots in common. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's going to be part of our Web3 integration. There is more to it. But the question of when it's going to come, I personally don't know. We were hoping to do it almost as soon as Q1 next year. But honestly, looking at what users really would like to see, as much as user-driven economies are key, and we want to kind of eventually move, like step back from in-application purchases and move towards the model of commissions and transactions between users, because I think that's what can truly enable a user community to thrive. We first need to facilitate some basic needs of our users, which is, for example, wearing it in other platforms, because at the end of the day, it is fashion and people want to wear it. So first of all, we will focus on that. And then I think the trading will come with the Web3 aspect to it.
All right. So we have your plans for 2023 now. We also want to hear your goals, maybe personal goals.
Oh, personal goals. Well, I would like to not go crazy, because I think founders have a tendency of overwhelming themselves with ideas and actions. And,
tell me about it.
Yes, but well, goal for the company and goal for my vision is probably what I can talk about. My personal vision is the same as the company. I would like to create a better future. I would like to contribute to it. I would like to incentivize people to kind of really truly stop and think about the virtual self-expression compared to their physical. Like just start questioning, who am I on a digital platform and why should I care? Because I think we should care. We should be much more aware of what are the implications of you being online, what is the data collected, let alone how you dress as an avatar. But I do believe that by enabling users to have more and more benefits from engaging with virtual outfits, eventually one day this can kind of incentivize them to buy less physical outfits that are only used once often for a social media kind of representation of themselves. So if that in the long term will happen, and just by some kind of detectable numbers, we do have an impact on the physical consumption behavior, and we can contribute to reducing overconsumption, that is my dream. And maybe it's not for 2023, but in the long term, this is what I live for, what I work for. And while I think freedom and the beauty of self-expression is an incredibly powerful tool, at the end of the day, we want to make a better future, a more sustainable future in many aspects. So I think any business should really concentrate on how they can, make that happen, or at least take a step towards that.
Exactly. So with these great words, we wrap up this session. If you would like to maybe say another few sentences as a parting from our audience, you are more than welcome.
Oh, yes, no, just a few maybe three. I will keep count on how many sentences I share. No, basically just one thing. Please sign up to our allow list. It's on our website. Sign up to our newsletters as well, and you will be notified when we have our next drop. I think it's going to be super cool. We will keep posting new updates and even behind the scene content, some tips on how to use the platform, but also we want to kind of share some knowledge and skills on generally how to create virtual content. So I think becoming part of our community could be a very useful thing for anyone listening. So please do that. Genera.io, you can find us there. And of course, please reach out if you have any questions, because the whole point of decentralized community-driven creation is that you can approach us and we can chat, join our Discord as well. Maybe I should just say join every social channel we have, and my marketing lady will be proud of me.
All
And
right,
thank you for the opportunity.
No worries. Thank you so much for joining, and for our listeners and viewers, thank you for tuning in. We're wishing you happy holidays, happy new year, and take good care.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you for joining. Be sure to check back next week for the next HIPTHER Talks and subscribe on Amazon Music, Overcast, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, and Pandora.